On today's show, it's fight night in Minnesota. Might be over for the Bucks, and disaster strikes again for the Phoenix Suns. We'll talk about all that and so much more on this edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham, host of Locked On Cavs. He is Swipa, host of Locked On Nuggets, and you are listening to Locked On NBA Game Night, your one stop for every single NBA game from Sunday, March 30th. We have a lot to get to, but first, thank you for making this show your first listen every day. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and if you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us before we really get started here. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off that first purchase. There were 8 games on Sunday, a lot of extracurricular activities in Swipa. That's where we're going to begin with the Minnesota Timberwolves defeating the Detroit Pistons 123-104. There were 7 ejections in this one. A fight that really started between Naz Reid and Ron Holland spilled into the stands. Ultimately changed the game pretty significantly, and this was a tough draw for the Pistons, having so many guys ejected while already being shorthanded.
Yeah, I mean, you would think in these situations, the Pistons are very young. And so you would just think in these situations that we're down our best player, all NBA player at that. We definitely need to stay composed. We need everybody on the court. We need all of us to be on a rally. And on top of that, this moment is more important in the game. They had a 10-point lead at this point. And so this was a very winnable game, not because the Wolves are bad. They're very good. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's just that the Pistons, they were just and especially on the road, keeping your momentum in these situations would have done a lot for them. But look, this is how the Pistons are. They're young, they're very rowdy, and they believe in each other. They fight for each other, and that really starts with Isaiah Stewart. A lot of people around the league that are not associated with the Pistons, they think he's just a crash out. They don't think that he's somebody that is good for basketball. But look, the team loves him. The players love him. He battles for them every single night. He's a very aggressive defender, aggressive rebounder, and a little bit of a jump shot as well. And tonight, there was that whole altercation with Rod Holland, and he ends up I didn't even think it was a crazy foul by Ron. He just kind of hard foul on Naz Reid. Naz takes an exception to it. He turns up, gets in Ron's face, and the next thing you know, Dante DiVincenzo trucked up with hands on Ron, hey, yo, relax. And then Ron snacks his hand off, and then all of a sudden, now we got a tussle between Dante and Ron, who Dante wasn't involved in the initial reaction. And then just far off, Isaiah Stewart says, and then it turns into a whole brawl that ends up in the stands. And what's funny is when you play the clip, Danny, you just see these two gentlemen in the front row, and they're just getting smashed. His hair's flying all over the place. And I'm just man, you got your money's worth today paying for courtside.
That's what courtside seats will get you. You never know what's going to happen at an NBA game when you say courtside. It could be at Target Center on a Sunday evening where you really get in on the action. Before we get more into this game, let's head on over to Locked On Pistons host Kuka Hill for his take.
Tough game for your Detroit Pistons. They get blown out by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Host of Locked On Pistons podcast, Kuka Hill here. This game looked like the Pistons might actually have a chance to win. They were playing extremely well in the first half. They were up by double digits. They were holding Minnesota's offense completely down. And then a huge fight happened. Everyone saw it. A major brawl went down. Stu got ejected. Ron Holland got ejected. Marcus Sasser got ejected. JB Bickerstaff got ejected for going after former player Pablo Prigioni, who was on the coaching staff of the Minnesota Timberwolves. There was a ton of ejections. There were a ton of technicals in this game. And in the game where the Pistons were already without Cade Cunningham, were already without Tobias Harris, to then also lose Stu, Ron, and Sasser against a team fighting for playoff seeding in the Minnesota Timberwolves, it was just a recipe for disaster. I would have loved to see what this game looked like if those guys did not get ejected, because the Pistons were playing really well before that happened. But Sadly, that's not the case. Pistons lose one. They'll be back on Wednesday. Hopefully, Cade plays in that national TV game against OKC.
So before we get into the Minnesota side of things, because I definitely do want to spend some time talking about them and credit to them for them winning this game. But the other thing that Koo didn't bring up there and we haven't broached yet is there are probably going to be suspensions coming from this game, given what Isaiah Stewart's track record, that you brought up is what his reputation is. And he's picked up several flagrant fouls, a lot of technicals this year. He is somebody, considering he wasn't involved in the initial altercation, I would bet he's going to get suspended. I wouldn't be surprised if Ron Holland gets suspended for this going into the stands for a team that is currently sitting in 5th in the Eastern Conference with a game and a half lead over the Milwaukee Bucks. This could be about so much more than just Sunday night for them.
I'm going to take everybody down memory lane because a lot of people don't remember this about the fight. And everybody knows what I'm talking about. The one between Indiana and Detroit. People don't realize this. Indiana had its first season where it could possibly have won a title that year.
Yeah.
They were good. They were like very, very good. Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, that team was loaded. They had a lot of dudes. Steven Jackson was on that roster. I mean, they were just like a very, very, very good deep team. That fight ruined their season. And this is not going to be that at all. But what you don't want to see is you don't want to see a Detroit team lose momentum, honestly, because it's something that Detroit didn't even start. The Wolves started it. Naj Reid and Dante started this. Detroit responded to it. So I would hope that there's not like a bevy of suspensions being handed out here. Isaiah Stewart, you want to say that he came from, across the court and then got involved in the interaction and then had 2 separate scuffles in that little sequence that took place. A scuffle
with Rudy Gobert before it, a couple possessions before it too.
I get it, but it's also like, look, NBA, just like make an example of it, but don't let it be like super severe because we don't want to derail what's happening with the season. You already threw out half the team and the head coach. I think they should just be more on the lighter side with this, and then we can just all move forward.
And I don't think it's going to be a case where anyone gets suspended for the rest of the year. And obviously, the fight you were talking about between Detroit and Indiana that happened, over 20 years ago at this point, that happened at a much different point in the season, too. It wasn't a fight that took place at the end of March. It took place kind of in the thick of the season. So I do think that is worth mentioning, too. I don't think this is going to be season-altering thing, but it could be the difference for the Pistons between being in the number 5 seed and seeing Indiana and the number 6 seed and seeing New York in the first round of the playoffs. Now, as far as the Wolves go, let's head on over to Locked On Wolves for a little bit more.
The Minnesota Timberwolves blew out the Detroit Pistons by 19 on Sunday night in a game that featured 7 ejections after a second quarter fight. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Daily Locked On Wolves podcast. The Wolves responded in a big way. They beat the Pistons after trailing by 16. There was a big fight in the second quarter that saw 5 players and 2 coaches, including Timberwolves assistant Pablo Prigioni, Pistons head coach JB Bickerstaff. And on the Timberwolves side, Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo ejected after the fight. The Wolves, like I said, responded in a big way. Ant only had 5 points at halftime. The Wolves were still trailing at the half. They came all the way back in the second half, beating the Pistons by 15 points in the third quarter alone and extending the lead to get to true garbage time late in the fourth quarter. Ant had 5 at the break, finished with 25, and Rudy Gobert had 25 rebounds and 19 points in this game. An impressive response in a physical game for the Wolves as they keep pace in the Western Conference. Subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all things Timberwolves.
So the Wolves now move to 43-32 on the season. They're fighting to try and find their way out of the play-in in the Western Conference. They're a half game behind the Golden State Warriors after this win. Really nice games, I think, especially second half. More so nice second half for Anthony Edwards, as Ben mentioned. He had 20 in the second half after 5 in the first half. But where are you at overall on Minnesota right now?
Well, people may not know this, but if you go to Dunks and Threes, which I love because it has adjusted net rating, adjusted offensive rating, adjusted defensive rating based on the strength of the schedule you played, I think it gives a more accurate depiction of what your team is. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they are currently 5th in the NBA net rating on Dunks and Threes. They have the number 10 offense in the NBA, and they have the number 5 defense. I think people are just sleeping on just how good they are. I think they're sleeping on how good, to his credit, Julius Randle has been this regular season. I would say that this is Julius Randle's 3rd best regular season of the last 5 years, which is really good. And I do think that Rudy Gobert back at full powers, 25 rebounds is an insane amount of rebounds. Their defense is just hellacious. On top of that, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. I think they got some good players coming off their bench. The young boys, they really have started to find their way. Jalen Clark plays good minutes for this team. And then on top of that, they got Rob Dillingham that they can get the ball to if they want to. They're just a lot better than folks realize. And I think that this is a sneaky dark horse team to make it to the Western Conference Finals. Now, it looks like they might have to run into OKC in the first round. But look, they play anybody else in the first round. If I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves, I feel confident versus the Rockets, versus Denver, or versus the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm ready to rock.
So if you're the Wolves, and I think a lot of the conversation locally in Minneapolis and with that team is trying to find a way to avoid the play-in. Do you think it's more important to get to 6 or to make sure you win that first play-in game and finish 7th?
Well, I think security is always important. And if you can get to the 6th seed and you can stay there and you don't have to worry about a single game elimination where if Anthony Edwards, if he stubs his toe wrong and can't make a jumper that day, you don't have to worry about falling to that 8 spot. It's always better to make the playoffs. And again, for them, that means they would line up versus Denver, and they've won 5 straight games versus Denver. You know, they play again coming up soon here this Tuesday, and so maybe Denver's able to get back. But other than that, like, I feel comfortable. They should feel comfortable versus them or versus the Rockets. So I think they should try to make the playoffs by any means necessary.
Well, we'll see if they can. A team that will make the playoffs is the Milwaukee Bucks, but even as they will make the playoffs, it might be over for them. We're going to dive into that next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace when I'm looking for tickets, and it should be your go-to ticket marketplace as well, because watching basketball in person is just the best. I got to do it on Sunday. I get to do it all the time because I'm lucky enough to have this job. But when I want to go see something else, Game Time is the place I go. Recently, when the team I cover was out west and I wasn't at games for a little while, I still needed to go see something in person. So what did I do? Logged on to the Game Time app, used my account. Of course, I didn't get the bonus because it wasn't my first time, but I went and, bought tickets to a comedy show in Cleveland that night. And it was a great experience. And I had a great experience with Game Time, partially because I knew exactly what my view of the stage was going to be, because inside the Game Time app, they will show you what your view of the stage, center court, during football season, what the 50-yard line, or with baseball season here, home plate is going to look like. And they have Game Time picks filtering out the fluff and showing you only the best deals on great seats. So what you need to do to take the guesswork out of buying tickets is buy those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off that first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and be a friend to tell a friend about the show. The Milwaukee Bucks had a blowout loss at home against the Atlanta Hawks. Let's head on over to Locked On Bucks for a little bit more.
With this 21-point loss to the Hawks, the Bucks have now lost 4 straight games. Not the time of the year that you want to see your team dropping consecutive games like this. More of the same for the Bucks against the Hawks, as we saw against the Knicks. Too many turnovers, allowed too many offensive rebounds, not enough defense for this Milwaukee Bucks team. When you score 124 points, generally you think we should win this game. Just that the Bucks also gave up 145 points to the Atlanta Hawks there. Just not a recipe for success, and it's been consistent. Too many defensive breakdowns, not getting back in transition defense. Just seems like a team right now for the Bucks that does not trust one another, and they have to find a way to get that trust back, as they only have 8 more games in the regular season before the playoffs start. Oh, and on top of that too, with them losing to the Hawks in this game, they have now lost the tiebreaker. The Hawks now have that tiebreaker, and they're 4 games behind the Bucks with 8 games to play. Little unlikely that the Bucks fall into the play-in, but stranger things have happened.
So I don't think we're going to see the Bucks in the play-in, but I also don't think we're going to see the Bucks in the second round. Like, this is a team that has Giannis, and as I think we both agree, Giannis is still an incredible basketball player. But without Damian Lillard, and even with Damian Lillard, I think their avenue to advancing to a conference finals pretty limited. But I just think this is a really, really flawed team that is kind of showing it right now.
Yeah, they're not good. I feel like I've said this many times now. Bucks fans do not like this. It's no disrespect. It's just they're just not a good basketball team. I watched that Hawks team live play the Charlotte Hornets the other day, and I just was aghast with the kind of basketball I was watching. They look like a completely different team. They look completely comfortable today. Like Zachary Ricochet, by the way. I want to talk about a kid that's getting better as the season goes on. Is he going to be a sneaky good, hey, welcome to the playoff player this playoff season? Maybe. Like, he's a good shot maker. He's long. He has a nice little handle to him. He does a lot of things really well. So great job by the Hawks getting this win. But look, man, like Giannis has 31 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists and 1 steal. He was 11 of 18 from the field, even 9 of 14 from the free throw line, which is good for him. And it meant nothing. Like, it meant absolutely nothing. Brook Lopez, and I've said this multiple times, he's going to have to play in space in a playoff setting versus Cade Cunningham, Tim Hardaway Jr., and whoever. Or Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Neesmith, Benny, Pascal, Miles Turner, Obi Toppin. And he's their defensive anchor.
Or if they get the Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. Like, there's just he cannot move anymore. He's a statue defensively. Like, he's good at the rim, but he cannot move in space.
And I think that you have to have a big that can do that. And I think, you know, for the rest of this segment, I have already on board with I think Giannis's time in Milwaukee is up. And I think that this is going to be, I think Giannis already is a top 20 player to ever play the game of basketball. Giannis has the ability to win another MVP and another title in the next 2 years. He is that good. He could be a finals MVP. Giannis could get back into best player in the world talks. He's that good. But I don't think that's happening in Milwaukee. I think they have done a horrific job building the roster around him. I think even with the Damian Lillard swing, they tried, but they trade, and even just the trades they've made this year, like the dumps that they've had, like the people they've added to the roster, they just don't make sense. They don't have defenders on the perimeter. They can't stop anybody from doing anything. And Giannis literally is just like playing out of his mind, but I can't floor raise for everybody on the roster. I just think that this might have to be the last iteration. He's already number one. He got hurt 2 playoffs ago and missed 2 games basically, and then didn't win a single game in the playoffs in 2023 when he did play. Ended that series in game 5 with 38 and 20 points. Meant nothing. And then the next year is hurt, misses the playoffs. And then now you're telling me he's going to have no Dame and going to probably be out in the first round versus the Knicks or the Pacers? I think, Danny, it just might be over.
So I think there's 2 routes it can go. It can be if Giannis cares about winning championships and, you know, winning is the only thing that matters, he's not going to be in Milwaukee very much longer. If Giannis wants to be a one franchise guy, he can be Milwaukee's version of Dirk, and he'll be probably a better player all time than Dirk was in Dallas, but that one title is going to be the one title, because I don't see how a Milwaukee Bucks team that doesn't have control of their drafts moving forward, that doesn't have young assets, that has not drafted very well, I don't see how they get back to competing for championships, because their championship window is closed. It is deadbolted shut. Like, I don't see how they get back into it.
Yeah, and again, like, Giannis has already gone superhuman. This is just second straight year of 30 and on 60% from the field. Like, I mean, there's just not much you can ask for him to do.
It feels a lot like watching, and Giannis is older at this point, but it feels a lot like watching the end of that first LeBron in Cleveland era, where the team won a lot of games because LeBron was incredible, but the supporting cast wasn't really good. And it was they didn't have an avenue to win a title other than LeBron just absolutely dominating. And the league is much more talented now than it was then. But that's kind of what this feels like, is that he doesn't have the help he's needed. And the Dame trade is a failure. But he doesn't have the help that he needs, and I don't see how he gets it. But moving on to a couple of the other games that I do want to knock out before we get into the Kevin Durant injury that he suffered on Sunday. The Golden State Warriors beat the San Antonio Spurs 148-106 on Sunday. Just an absolute beatdown of San Antonio. Everybody that was active for the Warriors played and scored in this game. Nobody on San Antonio did anything. Brandon Pajemski had 27 points. Really good game for him. What teams right now would you pick the Warriors to beat in the first round that they could conceivably play?
The Rockets. Yeah. The Rockets.
Is that it? Because I don't know that the list is longer. I mean, I don't see how they could play Memphis at this point. I would pick them to beat Memphis too, but I don't know that the list is much longer than that. Like I wouldn't pick them to beat the Lakers. I wouldn't pick them to beat the Nuggets.
The Lakers are interesting. I think there's a way for them to beat the Lakers. I think they could also beat Denver, to be fair, but Denver and OKC, I think, will be their worst matchups in the playoffs. But I do think the Rockets, the Lakers, and Memphis would be like the more favorable ones they would feel comfortable with. But even obviously the Clippers, but there's just no situation for them to see the Clippers. So I would say the Rockets. I'll say Memphis.
Right. I think that's very fair. But there was a Kevin Durant injury in Phoenix that probably ends their season. We'll discuss that plus every other NBA game left next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell before we move on any further. But the Houston Rockets beat the Phoenix Suns in an absolute beatdown again, 148-109. Dillon Brooks was ejected from this game, and Kevin Durant left with what looked like a pretty nasty turned ankle. It's already been announced that he's going to have an MRI on Monday, not going to be traveling initially with the Suns as they head east for a 3-game road trip. Before we get into this more, let's head on over to Locked On Suns.
Well, yeehaw, Suns fans. It turns out that putting a theme on a night, that being tonight, Western night, doesn't really change the outcome of games. The Phoenix Suns fall to the Houston Rockets. I'm putting that lightly right now. In all actuality, if you didn't watch the game tonight, good for you. If you're looking to get some substance from this late night recap, then I'm sorry, I've got nothing for you. The Suns lose tonight and get beaten up badly, and the Suns games are starting to become like a Mad Lib of why they lost. You just insert in the Suns lost because transition defense was bad, open three-point shots again for the other team. The big three wasn't available, or for in this matter, Kevin Durant gets injured, which was just gut-wrenching, heart-aching. I mean, anything that could have went wrong tonight went wrong. But not everything was bad, Suns fans. I did get this cool hat. So yeehaw, Suns fans. The Suns get an L, but hey, I get a little dub.
Ben Garcia finding the bright side, as he always does. But there's no, obviously, timetable for how long Durant might miss with the sprained ankle. Watching it live looked pretty bad. It is his left ankle, and obviously he has had it sometimes issues with his ankle in the past, as most guys have, but I do wonder, we might not ever see him again in a Phoenix uniform, considering how few games are left, where they're at in the standings. Like, this could be it.
Yeah, I remember it. And if please, somebody in the comment section on the post show, I believe Kevin Durant got traded to the Suns on February 6, 2023, if I remember the exact date.
I will look it up as you talk.
That was a big day around the league. I was very excited for that. I thought that was like, man, this is going to be an interesting deal. Like Kevin Durant with Devin Booker, CP3, DeAndre Ayton. Like, let's see it. Let's see how it works. And they look good. That stretch they had in the regular season. But you know what was the epitome of like what that run was going to look like? It was when Kevin Durant, when he hurt his ankle slipping on the ground in warmups before a game. And that's kind of been what this whole experiment has been. It's just they get decimated. Just for people who don't remember this, the Nuggets had them down 30 points at halftime in Game 6 in Phoenix. Then they lost that series. Then the next year they get mud walked by the Minnesota Timberwolves in a sweep. And Kevin Durant, I think, had a good series. Just no one else showed up consistently. And then now this year, when everybody's like, they should be like a top 6 seed in the West. Like, look at the talent. Like, look at the names on the roster. They got Bud now. And now they're just like, this whole season has just been them teetering. And people just saying, well, how are they not more solidified in the playoff picture? How are they 4 games out of the play-in? It's over. The Sacramento Kings absolutely should get that 10th spot. The Suns should not be in the playoffs. They won those 4 straight games. Everybody was like, man, Danny, the Suns are back. We feel good about them. Like, I even read off, one of the things I want people to know, just kind of how wonky this year is. In the last 12 years, there's only one NBA champion that has not finished in top 3 in effective field goal percentage as a team. Only one. And that was the Lakers in 2020. Do y'all know that the Phoenix Suns this year, they have the 4th best effective field goal percentage in the NBA? And all the teams that are all surrounding them, Cleveland's 1, Denver's 2, Patriots are 3, Boston's 5, Milwaukee's 6, OKC 7, New York's 8, the Lakers are 9, and then the Memphis Grizzlies are 10. Those are all playoff teams, except for the Suns. How is it that your shot making and shot conversion is that good, and you're not even in the playoffs? That team is just, it's over. That's another one that has to be done and over with. And I don't think Kevin Durant plays another game for the Suns this year. And, we'll see come June, July, where is this next team going to be?
I would imagine it's not going to be in Phoenix. I don't know where it's going to be. I think it's going to be a very interesting summer for him and for the Suns. I think that there are a lot of different directions they probably should go, but I'd be stunned if he plays for the Phoenix Suns again. For the Houston angle of this, let's head on over to Jackson Gatlin.
Rockets absolutely beating up on the Phoenix Suns, 148-109. What's up? This is Jackson Gatlin, host of Locked On Rockets. Rockets offense was a well-oiled machine in this one. 8 different players scoring in double figures, led by Jalen Green, who dropped 33 points on 9 of 17 shooting, including 11 of 13 at the free throw line. It's been great seeing him become more effective at drawing fouls. It really helps unlock his offensive game. Rockets shot a blistering 58.1% from downtown in this game. The Suns' defense was non-existent. They have 0 defensive chemistry, and they look like they have no idea what they're doing on that side of the floor most of the time, especially in this game. And look, it didn't help matters. The Suns kind of poked the bear late in the second quarter. Dillon Brooks, Kevin Durant, Nick Richards got in a bit of a dust-up. Dillon Brooks got ejected. KD and Nick Richards both pick up a technical each, and the Rockets just went on this massive tear after that altercation. They won the second quarter 46-25 and basically just cakewalked Phoenix the rest of the way. So the downside from this game for the Rockets, though, Dillon Brooks might be suspended for their next game on national TV against the Los Angeles Lakers unless he gets one of those 2 technicals rescinded.
I did not realize that was the 16th technical for him. That could be, where they're at in the standings. I believe they have 2 games between them and Denver. So that could be something that makes a difference in seeding. And for a young team like that, and obviously OKC has clinched the 1 seed in the West, but for a young team like that, I think it's imperative that they start as many series in the postseason as possible at home. I don't love their chances against who's going to be in 7th. If they win that series, I don't love their chances against Denver, but I like their chances against Denver just a little bit more if game 1 is in Houston as opposed to in Denver.
Yeah, they need all the advantages they can get. Their offense is completely dependent on offensive rebounding. They're going to struggle. But look, this is a great growing opportunity for them. They're on pace to win over 50 games. In the second year of the Ime Udoka era, this to me is like, they couldn't have imagined a better season. So shout out to them for getting to this point. And honestly, they could surprise a lot of people in just 3 weeks anyway. Like, maybe they do go on a run in the playoff. Maybe they're just as good as their regular season numbers indicate. So we'll find out soon. But shout out, man. They get another really good win. They got a lot of really good players. By the way, Amin Thompson had one of the nastiest spin dunks on Kevin Durant today. Like, just a freak athlete. He's going to be a superstar one day. He's definitely one of my guys around the league I'll be paying a lot of attention to. But good win by the Houston Rockets.
If he figures out a 3-point shot, he's going to be an MVP candidate. Like, he's going to be in the conversation for the best player in the league one day because he's just an absolute freak. But I think that's a pretty big if on the outside. We'll see if he can do it. Moving on, the Cavs beat the Clippers 127-122. Donovan Mitchell had 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. Jarrett Allen had 25 and 12 for the Cavs. Norman Powell had a really good game in this one for the Clippers. He had 34 points and 13 and 24. James Harden really wasn't great for LA, and Kawhi Leonard didn't play. The Clippers 42 and 32 on the season. Cavs become the second team in the NBA this year to reach the 60 win mark, just behind OKC.
Yeah, man. Cavs, dominant team. Really excited for their playoff run. I'm excited what the Clippers are going to look like in the playoffs too, especially once they have Kawhi, James Harden, everybody available with, I think, a first-team all-defense player in Chris Dunn. Derrick Jones Jr., really good defender as well. They got a lot of guys, and so they're one of the deeper teams in the league. The Western Conference playoffs are going to be a bloodbath, and I hope everybody is ready for it when it happens.
I cannot wait to see what the West playoffs look like. And from a Cavs perspective, I think the Cavs are going to break out of that March slump they were in. They're going to have 2 days off for the first time in a while. They're going to be at home for back-to-back games for the first time since February 23rd, and they're going to look like the Cavs again. I think a lot of people in Cleveland are going to stop panicking. The next game they play will be against the New York Knicks on Wednesday, and the Knicks beat the Blazers 110-93 on Sunday. Still no Jalen Brunson, but we did get a bit of an update on him that we'll get to in a second. Both Bridges and Anunoby for New York had 28 points. Karl Anthony Towns only had 10, but New York finds a way to get it done. Don't know when we're going to see Jalen Brunson again, but it was announced he's able to now return to basketball activities. So a step in the right direction, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the Knicks are a really good team. I'm excited to see how they look. They have a lot of different guys, a lot of players that you can throw at, different people on the court. Defensively, they should be better than what they are, but obviously having Brunson in Towns, it really messes up kind of some of the defensive schemes that Thibodeau wants to get done. But Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Mitchell Robinson. I mean, it's one of the best defensive courts in the league. And now they got DeLon Wright, too, coming off the bench. He'll be a supplementary piece to put next to Jalen Brunson. Just a really good team. But also, I want to shout out Denny Avdia, 33 points again, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, continues to play really well down to this stretch of the season. Shaden Clark, sharp as well. And then I think Donovan Cunningham, 10 rebounds, didn't score super well, but again, just all the potential in the world at the center spot.
Yes, and then our final 2 games are 2 tank fests as New Orleans beats Charlotte 98-94. Miles Bridges had 20 points for the Hornets. For the Pelicans, just a who's who of guys. Jose Alvarado had 12, Kelly Olynyk had 13, and nothing says we want lottery picks like this game and the next game we're going to talk about.
Shout out Jose Alvarado, though. He got the game-sealing assist, headsy tween, drive, pass over his right shoulder behind the defender jumping, and then they made a nice little floater layup to put the game away. So great job, Jose.
And in the final game of the day, the Toronto Raptors 127, the Philadelphia 76ers 109. This is a much bigger loss for Philadelphia than anything because they are so dearly trying to hold on to that number 5 spot in the lottery odds. Their pick is top 6 protected. If they can stay at 5, that could be a franchise altering type of luck for them. Bad luck, good luck, whatever you want to call it. That is something that I think is imperative to the future of Philadelphia, is keeping their pick and not sending it to OKC.
Hey, Edgecombe, Baylor, 76ers, maybe that makes the season a win.
Maybe. So, I mean, I think if they get in the top 5, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I watch a ton of basketball. I watch the NBA every night. I don't have a ton of time to watch college basketball every night. But if they get a top 5 pick in what is widely regarded as a pretty good draft, that could save what the future of their franchise looks, given we don't know how Joel Embiid is ever going to look physically again with all the injuries that he's had. And they are very constricted with other moves they can make because of the contract Embiid is on and the contract they signed Paul George to this year.
Yeah, but look, you got to do what you got to do. I remember Daryl Morey saying he can see a sliver of how they could win a title or get to a title this year. Well, sliver's gone, thankfully. And now they don't have to worry about it.
I think that sliver is hitting on some ping pong balls in May when the draft lottery happens. But you hit on your draft lottery by making this your first listen today, and you should be making it your first listen every single day. You can find us everywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you give us a 5-star review. leave us some nice words as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor before we get out of here, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest content from us. We'll be back tomorrow talking about every single game from Monday.